Good afternoon, I'm Giovanni Dennis with the Midday News for today, Wednesday, December 16. A special welcome if you're watching online at onespotmedia.com. The medical team at the Montefiore Medical Center in Bronx, New York, caring for Michaele Allen, who was mauled by dogs in St. Anne, November, says he's successfully undergone 4 surgeries. Chief of Plastic Surgery at the hospital, Dr. Evan Garfin, gave an update on the operations this morning on TVJ's Smile Jamaica.
Some of it involved moving tissue from his back, muscle from his back to his head, microsurgically, which was a very long operation, relatively complicated. But these are all things that we do on a relatively regular basis. So I think he was in a good place to receive the care he got.
Dr. Garfin, who spearheaded the fundraising for Michaele, now 6 years old, and his mother, Shireen Grindley, had high praises for doctors in Jamaica.
What set Michaele up for success was the care he got in Jamaica. You know, he had a very significant injuries at the time of the dog attack and lost a tremendous amount of blood and was cared for initially by a really excellent group of doctors there at the trauma hospital who really saved his life, and they deserve a tremendous amount of credit for that. And then he was sent to the Children's Hospital, where he also got excellent care under Mr. Logan's direction, I think, and Leighton Logan took care of him there and did a super job. And so that was probably the most important part of his care.
The Savannah Lamar Hospital in Westmoreland is under severe pressure due to upsurge in COVID-19 cases in the parish. That revelation from the medical officer of the parish, Dr. Marcia Graham. She was speaking at the Ministry of Health's COVID-19 conversations recently. O'Shane Masters reports.
Westmoreland has recorded a total 571 COVID-19 cases and 22 COVID-19 related deaths, 12 of which are recorded in the last 4 weeks. Of the 571 cases, 91 are active and 14 out of the 91 are hospitalized. According to Medical Officer of Health for Westmoreland, Dr. Marcia Graham, the Savannah Lamar Hospital has 18 beds designated for COVID-19 patients. This means that the hospital now has only 2 beds available.
The hospital has been under a lot of strain, and they would have seen a doubling in their admission rates over the past month. So we really need to take measures to stem that tide so that the health system does not become overwhelmed in the parish. In addition to the 91 active cases, we also have over 1,500 persons who are in home quarantine. Most of these persons would have been persons who would have arrived in the island by air within the last 2 weeks.
Dr. Graham confirms that there is a widespread community transmission in the parish. Island-wide, at least 20 communities have been identified as hotspots for community transmission. 7 of them are located in Westmoreland.
They are Negril, Little London, Grange Hill, Big Bridge, Landilo, Frome, and White House. And so we are seeing significant number of active cases in these communities, but there is no reason for the other communities in Westmoreland to have any sense of security. Because whereas these are topping the charts, most communities in the parish are now recording active cases, and so everyone needs to be alert.
She adds that 18.6% of tests done in Little London have returned positive results, 16% in Grange Hill, and 12.5% in Savannah Lamar. Dr. Graham says that the health department will be conducting tests in the White House and Beeston Spring communities, as there have also been positive cases in those areas. The medical officer is appealing to citizens to do their part in stemming the community spread of the virus. On December 11, the Westmoreland Health Department staged a COVID-19 and dengue prevention march in Savannah Lamar and Petersfield and conducted testing at Independence Park and the Petersfield Primary School. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The business community in Westmoreland is bracing for more fallout following news that the parish will be under tighter COVID-19 restrictions for the rest of the year. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced restrictions amid a dramatic spike in COVID-19 cases in the parish. Starting today, the nightly curfew in Westmoreland will begin at 7 o'clock and the gathering limit will be reduced from 15 to 10. President of the Negril Chamber of Commerce, Richard Wallace, says the additional restrictions will have devastating effects on businesses.
The situation in Westmoreland is not good, and we think so. Even though unfortunately it's right during the Christmas season when a lot of businesses would look to make an extra revenue around this time, especially coming off 9 months of this COVID pandemic. It's really disappointing to a lot of people. I've been getting a few calls from business people about this and the effect it's going to have on their businesses.
The Prime Minister has warned that there will be further restrictions in Westmoreland if the situation escalates. Jamaica's coronavirus case count is now 11,907. There were 32 new confirmed cases Tuesday. Their ages range from 3 to 90 years. Westmoreland had a majority of the cases with 14, followed by St. Catherine and St. James with 7 and 3 positive cases respectively. The number of COVID-19 deaths remain at 276. However, the ministry is reporting 2 coincidental deaths. One of the deceased was previously under investigation. One local politician has courted controversy after making comments which could undermine public confidence in a COVID-19 vaccine. Mayor of Maypen, Winston Mirage, said it is safer that Jamaicans will get to see what happens to other people in other countries after they take the vaccine. He made the comment while addressing a function in Chapperton, Clarendon recently.
We understand that there is a vaccine out, more than one vaccines around. But, sometimes when something new come out, you can't just run into it because you don't know what effects it might have on you. So we want the big countries, them like America and Canada and England, go ahead and take the vaccine and let us see how it works for a little while before we rush into it. Not true? Yes, that's the safest thing to do. Yeah, so after that now, I will say, yes, it's working. Everything good for those people. Then next year we can say, all right, come our time now. We're ready to take it, eh?
It's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have more stories when you return. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. No room for complacency. That's the warning from Chairman of the Manchester Municipal Corporation, Donovan Mitchell, to persons in the parish hosting illegal parties. The stern warning comes as the Medical Officer of Health last week reported that 2 COVID-19 clusters have been identified in Manchester due to illegal parties. Details in this report.
We won't be giving approval for any.
A Christmas without the regular music and frolicking on the streets. That's the new shift due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which have halted celebrations not only locally, but globally. However, in Manchester, the local authorities say there will have to be strict adherence to the measures, or else those who disobey the no-party ban will face severe consequences. The warning has come from Chairman of the Municipal Corporation, Donovan Mitchell, who spoke at the latest meeting of the corporation.
The police and other teams in terms of the JDF Reserve and the municipal police will be asked to ramp up their inspections of properties and where persons are having day rave and night rave and grave diggings with parties, etc.
He says if found in contravention of the Disaster Risk Management Act, action will be taken on the spot by the officers. The mayor warned summonses will be issued as a justice of peace will be traveling with each police team.
That is the way forward because a number of persons, and please note, once there is evidence that there was a party or something else is happening, that don't believe that if you're not served on the day that you cannot be brought before the court. You can, once there's evidence.
Additionally, Chairman Mitchell says the police will also be taking to social media to monitor and prosecute party organizers promoting and advertising their events. In the meantime, a warning also to councillors of the corporation.
May I express upon my councillors to please do not fall into those traps, because you know that as leaders of the parish, we ought to set example. If you have to pass through, you pass through early in the morning or early time, or anywhere you want to pass through, and say hi and bye, and bring your greetings and move on.
To date, the parish of Manchester has recorded over 480 COVID-19 cases. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The Portmore Municipal Corporation has suffered a more than 90% plunge in revenue due to COVID-19 restrictions. Mayor of Portmore, Leon Thomas, says inflows to the corporation's coffers have nearly dried up entirely, mainly due to the ban on entertainment events.
Because normally during this period we'd see really a significant increase in our revenue collection, because places of amusements and market space and parkings and things like that, we will see some significant improvement, but because of the COVID we are not seeing that.
Now, earlier this week, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation reported that it had taken a 25% hit to its revenue due to the pandemic. The decline in the payment of property taxes also contributed to the downturn in earnings for the municipality. There is renewed optimism in the tourism sector for this year's winter season. The coronavirus pandemic has devastated the tourism industry over the past few months, but there have since been wavering projections on how COVID-19 would affect tourist arrivals for the winter season, which usually sees the highest numbers of profits. But in Parliament on Tuesday, Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett said preliminary figures from the Tourist Board are promising.
June 15 reopening to December 14, some 317,701 passengers arrived in the island, while the sector earned over $450 million. We are cautiously optimistic that we will see a 40% increase in arrivals over the winter season when compared to the preceding period of the massive downturn.
Minister Bartlett indicated that this projected uptick will have positive spin-offs for the economy, as sector workers who were laid off will be able to earn again. Among other things, he attributed the positive outlook to a global recognition of Jamaica's strict and effective management system.
They can now stay in multiple accommodation facilities within the resilient corridors, allowing our visitors the opportunity to experience more than one resort region on the trip. We have expanded the type of tests accepted by our health authorities. We are now accepting antigen as well as PCR tests. Of course, all tests must be approved by the World Health Organization, the Pan American Health Organization, or the Food and Drug Administration.
26 positive COVID-19 cases were identified at the Sandals Resort in Grenada. The positive cases include guests and employees, as well as their contacts. The discovery was made following proactive testing of employees and guests by the country's health ministry. Details in this report.
Social media was alight on Sunday with allegations that Sandals Resort guests and staff have been privileged to enjoy leniency with regards to COVID-19 protocols at the resort. This followed the announcement of a massive spike in COVID-19 cases coming out of the resort. How and why this happened are yet to be determined. Dr. George Mitchell of the COVID-19 Advisory Committee sought to provide clarity on what could have led to the outbreak while appearing on GBN's To The Point program. He said although accusations are rife, Sandals has been using the original COVID-19 protocols, which required a negative PCR test 7 days old or less.
What we have done and what we stuck with is the protocol that says you must, for Sanders guests, you must have a test result that is 7 days or less. So basically sticking to the original protocol. And that whoever qualifies with that can come to the resort and circulate within the resort with all the protocols that have been established.
Dr. Mitchell said after reviewing the protocol Sandals Resorts had to abide by, it was established that risk of infection or transmission of COVID-19 was minimal.
I had, and I'm not sure if it's a privilege, but I went through the protocol with a fine-tooth comb, as we say. And that protocol matched up to industry, the best of the industry standards. Those that have been refined for cruise ships, those that have been refined for, casinos and all the other industries that has gradually opened up. So they are based on international standards. And we were confident that once those protocols are kept by the hotel, that the risk, and we always have to come back on the risk of transmitting the virus is minimized.
GBN visited the Government of Grenada's official COVID-19 site, which stated guests staying at approved PureSafe travel accommodation hotels and resorts will not normally be tested on arrival. It further stated that guests will not be liable to take any further tests unless if during their stay they wish to leave the PureSafe travel accommodations. They will then need to take a PCR test after the 4th day of their stay.
And that report from our colleagues at the Grenada Broadcasting Network. And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's Health Report.
In the next edition of the Health Report, we'll look at food consumption during the holiday season.
The recommendation is the same. Half of your plate should be veggies or fruit. Consider a plate of color. Make your plate festive. Make the house festive. Don't think that you have to sample every single thing that has been cooked. That could have implications, because if your spouse has spent all day cooking and you don't have everything. So an appeal to not cook so much, because if you cook it, somebody's going to eat it.
That's a Health Report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's Healthy Living tip. Have a small plate of the foods you like best, and then move away from the buffet table. Start with vegetables to take the edge off your appetite. Eat slowly and avoid or limit alcohol.
And in news overseas, 2 high-stakes races for the Senate could completely flip the GOP's control in the Senate as the race for the Senate heats up in Georgia. More from the CNN.
Vote Georgia like your life depends on it, because it actually does.
The campaign trail is on fire in Georgia. President-elect Biden paying a visit to the state Tuesday.
Hello, Atlanta.
Alongside Senate Democratic challengers Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock.
I need 2 senators from this state who want to get something done, not 2 senators who are just going to get in the way. Because look, getting nothing done just hurts Georgia.
The Trump campaign slammed Biden's backing of Ossoff and Warnock, saying in a statement, quote, that Joe Biden would campaign for them is further proof that he is utterly in the grip of the extreme left, which is the driving force in today's Democrat Party. Now, early voters have been hitting the polls to cast their ballots before the official runoff election day on January 5th. And runoff ad spending in Georgia is nearing an eye-popping $500 million.
But we're going above and beyond. So for this Senate runoff, we're making sure that we are encouraging both political parties to have monitors there as the envelopes are received, as you're verifying the signature, so that people can verify the process. And also we have 24/7 video surveillance of the entire process. So we want to make sure whatever the transparency level needs to be, let's step it up to the next level so we can give voters that confidence.
In sports, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is still awaiting improved COVID-19 protocols from the Jamaica Football Federation for specific areas before the green light can be given for the resumption of the National Premier League. Now, the JFF has already missed the previous dates of November 14 and December 6, which had been set as likely dates for the start of the new season.
Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton says the local governing body for football will have to resubmit amended protocols outlining its plan of action regarding one particular area to get the 2020-2021 season of the National Premier League up and running. The minister spoke with TVJ Sports over the weekend.
I know they have made an offer in terms of introducing activities without the crowd support, but even so, in the expert advice of the clinicians, the public health team, the interaction of teams and management still does pose a risk, and there are certain protocols that need to be put in place for that.
When contacted for a response, JFF President Michael Ricketts told TVJ Sports his organization is now awaiting correspondence from the health minister to outline the specific concerns.
As soon as the minister is specific on what the real issues are, what the shortcomings are in relation to the protocol that we would have submitted, then certainly we'll make these adjustments. But I think a response ought to be on its way. So as soon as we hear from the minister, then certainly whatever the issues are, we'll have them addressed as quickly as we can.
The 2019-2020 National Premier League was postponed in March following the confirmation of COVID-19 on the island before the JFF officially cancelled the season and ruled it null and void in May. In the meantime, Minister Tufton added that crowd control remains the biggest factor hampering the resumption of many sporting events and competitions across the local landscape.
I'm more than happy to sit and talk to them and to continue the discussion, because I understand the importance of sports from a number of perspectives, not just the competition, but for the mental state of persons who either are fans or who participate. And so ideally we would like to see its resumption, but we have to manage it in the context of where the virus is and the overall compliance generally.
Horse racing was the first local sport to resume after the lockdown of sporting events in March, and since then there have been action in track and field, golf and tennis.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.